Good morning, everyone. So today we are going to talk about second languages. So let's get into it. The other day I had a subscriber who posted a comment he was asking about his second language, or rather he was told me this. He said that he was specializing in JavaScript and he's been doing it for a little while now, and he was just curious in general what should be his second language. And some people had told him that he should learn this or that because it's going to make him better at JavaScript and so forth. And he was he kind of pushed the idea that he was completely fine with having JavaScript be his main language. And he just really wanted to, he didn't really have anything specific that he wanted to do with his second language. He just really was curious of what would be a good next language to learn in order to just in general be a better programmer. And I think this was a great question, so here I am making a video about it. So let's think about this for a moment, because I actually replied to him. I usually do. If you ask me a question, what's usually happening is that I check the comment, I give you a short answer in text format, and then I make a video about it so that the rest of the world can learn from yours and mine little discussion here. Anywho, so what I said was virtually that the core question here is that, all right, you have JavaScript as your primary language, and through tools like Electron and React Native and so forth, and others as well, you have, with this one language, basically the ability to write any type of user-facing application and more, a lot more. You can do mobile, you can do desktop, you can do web, you can do server-side, you can do almost everything in this one language. So how do you supplement something that is that universal? Well, as you can imagine, that's especially when the requirement is that you still want to be generic. You have one of, if not the most generic language there is, and now you want to be a little bit more generic, or have something that adds value to that. And when I was thinking about this, it was such an interesting question, because what I have to consider when I give this answer is, okay, so you have, as I said, something that is as generic as it gets. And now, logically for me, it would have made sense to, okay, you have something that is generic. Now you want to have something that is really good for, say, one thing. I'll give you an example. Take Rust and Go. Now in theory, you could have these type of languages to be very generic, but they are really good. Like, there are better options for being generic, as you would suspect most likely. But for the thing that they do that better than most. And usually that's how it goes, at least in my experience. You have these generic languages that are very good at a lot of things, and then you have these languages that are really optimized for doing something specific. Same thing goes for frameworks and tools. Anywho, so I thought about it long and hard, and I replied by saying this. If you were looking for a job, I would have told you Java. Java is probably the most solid career choice for someone who wants to start working as a programmer without knowing really what they want to do, because it's so generic. Java isn't the best at anything. It's very good at almost everything. There's a bit of a difference there. If you wanted to go into, say, games development or something, or system level programming or robotics or anything like that, I would have told you C++. If you wanted to do computer science or machine learning, I would have told you Python. If you had told me that you wanted to do mobile development, well, it would have been Kotlin, Java, or Swift. And I say Java here, even though I know that Kotlin is the flavor of the month. And I said to him that the reason why I mentioned Java here as well is because you get double value. Kotlin is popular and it's the thing that is on the rise, but Java is still a valid choice for the Android platform. It's not gotten to the point yet where it's not part of Android anymore, or the Android development experience. So, with these things considered, all things considered rather, I'm gonna have to tell you that as your second language, if your first language is JavaScript and Node and all that stuff, I'm going to tell you Java. Java is the best second language for somebody who primarily works in Node and JavaScript. And let me tell you why. So Java is the sort of language where you can, if you want, and there are people doing it, you can do games development, you can do mobile development, you can get a job much quicker than most other languages. It is just a general good, solid language. Most other languages have a flavor of what you can do in Java. In essence, Java is a very good starting point for anybody who wants to be a serious programmer. And not just for web, but just in general, because it's such a diverse language. It touches on so many levels of programming that you will learn almost everything that you need in order to learn everything else. It's actually why Java, in my entire education was based on Java, and most educations actually start on at Java, because of, as I said, because of how generic and inclusive it is. So I told them that the two main things for you to take away from this, for him to take away from this, is that when you work in Node.js land and JavaScript and so forth, you will see that you have one set of benefits, and those benefits are that you can move very quickly. It's a loosely typed language with a fairly established way or best practices way of working and so forth. But what Java brings to the table is not the speed, it's not the innovation and not all of that stuff, but it's going to give you experiences working with types, and it's going to give you experiences working with traditional real object-oriented programming. Java and JavaScript are vastly different types of beasts. And the way that I think about using these two is that I use Node.js and JavaScript and so forth for almost everything I do. And because most of my own personal projects are small-time projects, it's not something that's supposed to be run by a really big company, or it's not part of a business. But when I'm not going for speed necessarily, maybe I'm going for scalability, stability, having the ability to work as effectively as part of a team, Java is probably one of the best languages out there, because it will, or rather, because Java has all these different, like, you can still mess it up, of course, but you can mess up any language. And the thing about Java, which is so powerful, is that if you learn, especially, as I said, especially if you are starting with Node.js and you focus most of your time on JavaScript, because JavaScript is very, well, I'm not going to say that it's not a team language, but most people who work in JavaScript and Node.js land are, if you only work in that environment, you will, from my experience, become one sort of developer. Because the ecosystem and the way of thinking and the community work in a certain way, and that community is very, very different from Java. You will actually grow as a programmer. I actually argue the same thing goes for Java developers. I actually think that maybe Java and JavaScript together will make you a better programmer than you could possibly be by just picking one of them. That's how I think about it, because a Node.js developer who is really good at that is going to have one set of things that person does very well, and a Java developer will have a completely different mindset and a different way of thinking, unit testing, like all of these, for the most part. It would be I don't know. It's so hard to describe, but I just see this distinction in if I meet a really good Java developer and I talk to that person really knows some things really well. And a Node.js developer or a JavaScript developer is really good at something else, even though it's just programming. And when you combine the two, it becomes this amazing type of, it becomes the most generic you become the most generic programmer that I can imagine. You can do it all. Well, not all of it, but you become greater than what you could have been if you just specialized in one or the other. That's how I feel about it. So that's my answer. if you know JavaScript and you have that as your primary language, go and learn Java. It will make you a better programmer. And it has a lot of benefits going for it. And I actually, this is double value in this video, I actually argue that the opposite is true as well. If you are a Java developer, go and learn Node.js and JavaScript and get good at that as well. Because it's going to teach you how to be a different type of programmer. And yeah, that's basically the answer I gave to my subscriber, and I'll give you the same answer. Hopefully you will try these things out, because they both have their own strengths and their own weaknesses. But what's beautiful about them is that together, if you know them both, the weaknesses become they don't really become a problem, because they complement each other, not only at the code level, but mentally. The way that you think when you work in these two languages will give you a perspective that you cannot possibly get if you just pick one or the other. Have a great day.